There's a sound that only the most attentive can hear. It's not loud, it's not explosive, but it's steady, growing beneath the surface like a quiet drumbeat in the distance. Most people don't hear it. Most people are too caught up in the noise of their own lives, the distractions of their daily routines, the illusions of what the world has told them is important. But the ones who are paying attention, the ones who can feel the shifts, they know. Something is moving, something is rising. It's like the slow pull of gravity that you don't notice until everything has already started to lean. It's the kind of build-up that looks invisible until suddenly it's undeniable. For years, the world's gaze has been fixed in one direction: the West, the hub of power, innovation, wealth, and influence, the source of what the rest of the world chases, the dream that everyone is told to follow. But while everyone was staring in that direction, something extraordinary was happening elsewhere, in the dust, in the chaos, in the relentless pulse of a nation many had underestimated, many had dismissed, many had simply overlooked. India was not sleeping, India was not waiting, it was building quietly, patiently, relentlessly. It wasn't making headlines, it wasn't drawing the spotlight, it didn't need to. It was playing the long game. Every skyscraper built, every code written, every child educated, every factory opened, every satellite launched, it was all part of a silent preparation, a quiet rebellion against the narrative that the West would forever lead and the East would forever follow. India for centuries carried the weight of invasion, of colonization, of division. It was told to wait, it was told to catch up, it was told to settle for less, but the spirit of a billion people cannot be chained forever. The spirit that once built ancient civilizations, that once led in mathematics, science, and trade, that spirit was never extinguished. It was simply gathering strength. There is something profoundly powerful about a people who know how to be patient, about a nation that knows how to survive through storms. India was never racing against the clock of the world. It was racing against its own potential, and now you can feel it. The pace is quickening. The heartbeat is louder. The signs are everywhere, but most of the world still isn't looking. That's how tipping points arrive. They are silent right up until the moment they aren't. And when that moment comes, when the balance shifts, it's too late to prepare. It's already happening, and India is not asking for permission to rise. It is rising because it must, because it can, because it will. For a long time, India's growth seemed like background noise to the West. It was something acknowledged but not feared, something noticed but not taken seriously. The West continued to see itself as the center of progress, the peak of possibility. But what happens when the background becomes the foreground? What happens when the quietest force in the room becomes the one that moves the walls? That's what's unfolding right now. India isn't coming to compete on old terms. It's not trying to replicate the West. It's forging its own model. It's blending ancient wisdom with modern technology, tradition with innovation, resilience with ambition, and that combination is creating a momentum that's hard to stop. The world is beginning to pivot. Global companies are shifting their focus. Geopolitical powers are redrawing their maps. Alliances are quietly being tested, reformed, and in some cases abandoned. The reliance on a single power structure is cracking. New partnerships, new deals, new centers of influence, they are forming, and India is sitting at the heart of many of them. This is not the India of decades ago. This is not the India that stands in line. This is the India that is stepping to the front, slowly, steadily, unapologetically. It's easy to measure growth in numbers, GDP, population, exports. But there is something deeper happening here. It's not just economic growth. It's a psychological shift, a belief shift, a confidence shift, a realization that India doesn't have to chase anyone. It only has to unlock what was already inside it. And now that this realization is taking root, the growth is no longer just a statistic. It's a mission. It's a movement. It's an awakening. The greatest moments in history are the ones that few saw coming. The silent revolutions, the quiet rises, the shifts that felt small until they weren't. This is what is unfolding now, beneath the surface, beyond the headlines. in the offices, in the villages, in the classrooms, in the minds of young Indians who no longer believe they have to leave their country to chase opportunity. They are building opportunity right where they are, in the hands of entrepreneurs who are solving problems not just for India, but for the world, in the hearts of people who no longer see India as a follower, but as a leader. The question of when India will surpass the West is no longer a distant question. It's not a fantasy, it's not a dream, it's a calculation, it's a countdown, it's an unfolding reality. The tipping point is closer than most think, closer than most are prepared to admit, and when it arrives, it will not knock politely on the door of the world. It will walk through it, not with arrogance, but with the quiet certainty of a nation that has waited long enough. The weight is shifting, the rise is accelerating, the future is being rewritten, and those who can hear the drumbeat know. They know the moment is near. There was a time when India's power was hidden, buried under layers of history, struggle, and silence. It wasn't that India lacked strength, it was that its strength had been sleeping. Generations passed believing they were bound by their circumstances, believing they could not break free from the shadows of the past. But even in the darkest nights, there was always a pulse, a quiet throb that refused to die. There was always something waiting to be unleashed. The world saw India's poverty, but it failed to see its potential. The world measured India by its limitations, but it never measured the fire that was alive in its people. The world was watching the surface, but it forgot to watch what was building underneath. That sleeping giant was never gone. It was just waiting for the right time to rise. India has always had a deep reservoir of strength, a spirit that no one could fully suppress. That spirit is not a sudden spark, it's a fire that's been carefully protected, slowly reignited, patiently nurtured. And now the flame is no longer small, it's spreading, it's roaring. It's no longer something that can be ignored. The world is waking up to an India that is no longer simply participating. It is leading. The days of India being seen as just a cheap labor market or a distant outsourcing hub are over. India is the innovation lab of the future. It is the breeding ground of bold ideas. It is the home of problem solvers who are not asking asterisk if asterisk they can. They are deciding asterisk how asterisk they will. And what makes this rise unstoppable is not just the technology or the investment. It's the mindset. It's the belief that this is India's moment and that waiting is no longer an option. This is a nation where the youth do not carry the weight of colonial shame. They carry the hunger of creators, builders, and dreamers. Every day, millions of young minds wake up not to escape their country, but to transform it. They see the challenges around them not as walls, but as doors waiting to be opened. They are not waiting for the world to tell them they are ready. They are preparing themselves, and in that preparation, they are becoming dangerous in the best way possible. Dangerous to mediocrity, dangerous to old systems, dangerous to the belief that the West will always lead. What makes India's rise unique is its ability to merge the ancient with the future. This is a country where temples stand next to tech parks, where centuries, old traditions exist beside cutting-edge innovation. It's a place where spirituality fuels ambition, where humility meets global ambition, where the wisdom of the past empowers the possibilities of tomorrow. India is not trying to be a copy of the West. India is building something different, something original, something the world has not fully understood yet. It's creating solutions that don't just fit one market. They are born to scale across continents. The rest of the world is starting to see this, but slowly. They are beginning to see the power of Indian startups, the resilience of Indian entrepreneurs, the brilliance of Indian scientists, the creativity of Indian artists, and the determination of Indian workers. But the most dangerous thing about India's rise is not what the world is seeing, it's what they are still missing. They are missing the magnitude of belief that is now spreading across India like wildfire. This belief cannot be measured in reports or graphs. It is not a number on a GDP chart. It is something that lives inside people, something that pushes them to work harder, to fight longer, to think bigger. India is not waiting to be invited to the table. It is building its own table. It is creating its own path. It is writing its own destiny. And those who doubt it, those who dismiss it, those who think this is just another temporary surge, they are the ones who will be left behind, wondering how they never saw the moment the tide changed. This is not just about economics or politics or demographics. This is about human will. This is about what happens when a nation starts to believe in itself without hesitation, without apology. It's about what happens when people stop thinking they need to leave to succeed and start building right where they are. It's about what happens when ambition becomes contagious, when confidence becomes the new currency, when determination becomes a national language. The world is realizing that India's rise is not a ripple, it's a wave, and this wave is not slowing down. Every engineer, every coder, every farmer, every student, every entrepreneur, they are all part of the surge. They are all adding their weight, their energy, their fire to the movement. And when enough people push in the same direction, they create momentum that no obstacle can resist. The question is no longer whether India has the potential to surpass the West. The question is whether the West is ready for it. The question is whether the world is prepared for what happens when the giant fully awakens. India's power is not in what it has already achieved, it's in what it's about to achieve. And that makes all the difference, because a nation that has just begun to believe in its unstoppable potential is the most powerful force on earth. And that force has now been unleashed. For decades, the world operated on rules written by others. The systems of power, the structures of trade, the alliances of influence, they were all designed by those who already sat at the top. And those systems had one purpose: to keep others out, to keep the new powers in check, to ensure that those who led would continue leading while the rest would follow, watching from a distance, playing by rules that were never made for them. India understood this. India lived through this. It was not simply about economics or politics. It was about being held behind invisible walls. Walls that told India it was not ready. Walls that made India believe it had to wait. Walls that forced India to accept less while others took more. But there is something that happens when you push people to the edge for too long. There is something that happens when you corner a nation that refuses to give up. They stop waiting for permission. They stop believing in the walls. They start finding cracks. They start building doors. They start making their own roads where none existed. That is what India is doing. It is no longer waiting for access. It is creating its own access. It is no longer asking to be included. It is demanding to be impossible to ignore. And it is no longer following the old chains of power. It is breaking them one by one. The world's largest democracies, the strongest economies, the most powerful militaries, they are all beginning to notice that India is not playing the old game anymore. India is rewriting the game. It is forging partnerships that the old powers never expected. It is building new alliances not by begging, but by offering undeniable value. India is stepping into regions where it was once a spectator and is now becoming a key player. Trade routes are being redirected. Investments are shifting. Strategic deals that once circled between the same few countries are now moving through New Delhi. And this is not happening with noise. It's happening with precision. Quiet, calculated moves that are reshaping the global map. The chains that were once wrapped around India were not just physical. They were mental. They were psychological. They told India to think small, to aim low, to wait. But now, those chains are snapping, and something extraordinary is being unleashed. A belief that India does not have to fit inside someone else's system. It can build its own. It can lead in its own way. It can stand tall, not as a shadow of the West, but as a force that the West now has to reckon with. For years, global institutions controlled by the West set the terms of trade, technology, and security. They made decisions that shaped markets and steered the future. But now, those institutions are feeling the pressure of India's rise. India is negotiating on its terms. It's saying no when it needs to. It's walking away when the deals don't serve its people. It's building regional power structures where it is no longer the student. It is the architect. This shift is not loud enough to make daily headlines. But in quiet conference rooms, in strategic board meetings, in backdoor summits, people are talking. They are realizing that India is no longer a country to watch. It is a country to follow, and sometimes a country to chase. India is not conquering through tanks or armies. It is conquering through technology, through energy, through influence, through culture. It is conquering through the force of its people. Its scientists are shaping the next space missions. Its entrepreneurs are solving billion-dollar problems. Its diplomats are striking deals that were once impossible. Its companies are becoming global brands. Its filmmakers, its thinkers, its artists. They are all pushing Indian influence into places it has never been before. And all of this is building a weight that is tipping the scales. There is a special kind of power in moving quietly. When others think you are still catching up, you are already building past them. When others think you are still following, you are already leading. That is where India stands today. A nation that has broken the old chains not with noise, but with undeniable momentum. And this momentum is not slowing down. It is gathering speed. It is pushing forward in ways the old world cannot fully stop. And the more India pushes, the more the cracks in the old systems begin to show. The West is starting to feel something it has not felt in a long time, a challenge it cannot easily control. For decades, the assumption was that the West would always be ahead. But now the numbers are shifting, the partnerships are shifting, the power is shifting, and India is standing at the center of this shift, not as a side player, not as a dependent, but as a leader. Every new infrastructure project, every strategic defense agreement, every technological breakthrough, these are not isolated wins. They are part of a larger picture, a picture of a country that is no longer defined by what it was, but by what it is becoming. And what it is becoming is undeniable. The old chains that once held India back have been broken. And once a nation breaks its chains, it can never go back to being small. It can never return to waiting in the shadow of others. It can never accept less than what it was always meant to become. India is now building a future where it no longer asks to sit at the global table. It is building its own table. And those who fail to see this, those who continue to cling to the belief that the old world order will forever hold, will soon find themselves sitting at a table where India is setting the rules. The silent moves, the broken chains, the shifting power, it is all leading to something the world cannot ignore, and the weight of this movement is only getting stronger. India's rise is no longer a question whispered in cautious circles. It's no longer a silent speculation behind closed doors. It is now a movement that demands attention. The old world order, the traditional centers of power, they can feel the tremors beneath their feet, but they still hope it will pass. They still hope the system will self-correct. They still hope India's surge is just another passing wave. But this is not a wave. It is a tide, and tides do not ask permission to rise. They do not pause because others are uncomfortable. They come with force, with certainty, with destiny. For decades, the world's powers crafted an architecture where influence was concentrated, where the paths to success were paved by others, where nations like India were expected to follow, to comply, to fit within boundaries drawn by foreign hands. But India has never been a nation that surrenders its spirit. It is a country that absorbs, that waits, that endures. And then, when the time is right, it moves. That time is now. India's movement is no longer in the shadows. It is stepping into the sunlight, not as a guest, but as a builder of the future. And the world is beginning to realize this is irreversible. What India is building is not just for itself. It is creating an alternative for the world. A system where emerging nations no longer need to beg for a seat at the Western table. A system where power is not dictated by history, but by action. A system where countries that were once ignored now find their voices amplified. This is what makes India's rise not just a national event. It is becoming a global realignment. Countries that were once forced to choose sides between the same few superpowers are now seeing India as a third path, as a power that understands their struggles, as a leader that has walked the same difficult road. India's alliances are not born out of pressure, they are born out of shared purpose. And while the old powers scramble to protect their influence, India moves with calm certainty. It is investing where others are retreating. It is building where others are hesitating. It is connecting where others are isolating, and these moves are not random. They are precise. Every railway, every port, every space mission, every digital leap. They are pieces of a larger strategy, a strategy that no longer seeks approval. It simply seeks results. The world once looked at India and saw problems, but India looked at those same problems and saw possibilities. The pollution, the poverty, the overcrowding, these were not reasons to collapse. They became reasons to innovate. India's greatest strength is that it has been forged in pressure. It has been sharpened in fire. It has thrived in chaos. And that is why no obstacle can truly stop it. When the terrain is rough, India does not retreat, it adapts. When the systems are unfair, India does not wait. It creates new ones. And now, the silence is breaking. The quiet rise is becoming a roar. The world is seeing it in the numbers, in the growth rates, in the shifting partnerships. But what the world is still trying to grasp is the unstoppable belief that now lives in the heart of this nation. It is a belief that no longer accepts the labels given by others. It is a belief that no longer asks how long it must wait. It is a belief that now says, now, it is happening now. There comes a moment in history when the weight finally shifts. When the tipping point arrives, it does not come with fireworks or grand announcements. It comes like a stone rolling down a hill, gathering speed, unstoppable, irreversible. India is that stone. The momentum is no longer theoretical. It is real, it is visible, and it is accelerating. The West is watching. Some are preparing, some are resisting. But none can stop what is now in motion. And when that final shift happens, when the balance tips completely, the world will remember this as the moment when India walked through the doors that were once closed to it. Not as a visitor, not as a follower, but as a leader shaping what comes next. The question was never if, the question was when. And now that moment is approaching faster than anyone expected. The tipping point is no longer in the distance, it is here, and those who still doubt will soon find themselves standing on ground that has already shifted beneath their feet. India is no longer asking the world to move aside. It is moving through, and nothing will ever be the same again.